one of my friends, we have a group called Beyonce's Backup Dancers, so
Right.
you can see.
That is a big font.
Yeah.
So what's it like to have your vision start to go?
Probably the most terrifying thing that's ever happened to me. I started seeing like little black dots floating around my vision, especially in my left eye, and also things were becoming a bit sort of distorted. And there was a lot of bleeding, so hemorrhages. The retina in my left eye had almost completely detached. They needed to do something straight away to try and save my vision.
Why would you put your vision at risk to sort of lose weight?
An eating disorder is territory that not many people would be comfortable talking about anyway. So explaining the thinking behind it is really difficult.
I didn't really realise I had a problem, this thing called diabulimia. I didn't realise it was a thing.
I haven't until now really spoken to anyone about it.
Having parents that did understand diabetes quite well meant that my control was always really good as a kid. In school, I'd always get comments from the teachers like how well I looked after it and how mature I was in dealing with everything. But that's all before the age where you kind of become quite self-conscious. And there were comments when I was 11, "Why are you injecting yourself in front of everyone? It's disgusting." Started feeling that I didn't want to do that in front of people. So I didn't do it and realised that actually I was fine. Nothing serious came of it. It wasn't until a few years later that it became a, you know, when you start becoming quite a self-conscious teenager at like 16, that it actually, I began noticing the link between not doing insulin and losing weight. And at that age, everyone's really conscious of what they look like.
So what was the idea in your head that you got?
Just that I wanted to be a bit thinner. Yeah, I'd have friends being like, "Oh wow, I didn't realise how skinny you were, you're looking great. Like, you've lost a bit of weight, that's because you're running so much." And I'd be like, "Yeah, it is, it is." It was almost as if I was convincing myself that that was the reason why as well. Those kind of comments kind of boost you a bit, even if they're not based on the truth. You know, someone telling you look good is always going to make you feel good. And, you know, I'd never really had that before. I thought, this is great, I'm going to carry on doing this because I think I'm feeling happier. Obviously, retrospect is a wonderful thing.
So how old are you here?
21 on my graduation day. I wasn't very well. I don't know, I looked really happy, but I didn't really enjoy uni. I mean, I did go out a lot, like any student, and have fun and stuff, but I think the diabetes stuff overshadows quite a lot of it because I was in such a bad place with it. And yeah, there were some really low points at university. You don't want to get out of bed. You don't have any motivation to do anything at all, speak to anyone. I was diagnosed with depression and given medication for that, and I think a lot of that was because of diabetes and the way I felt about diabetes, but that was never addressed, ever.
You mean that it was just seen as a separate thing?
Yeah. I was given antidepressants and that was it.
And did they ask you about diabetes?
No. And again, I don't necessarily blame anyone for that, but there are a lot of missed opportunities to catch things before they got to the stage they did.
And you weren't going to mention diabetes or...
I wasn't going to bring it up unless I had to, no.
Because?
I didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like, I was really happy with how skinny I was, and I was really scared of getting to the point where I'd have to sort things out because I knew how difficult it was going to be. I don't think I saw a diabetes team the whole time I was at university.
Really?
Yeah. I wish I was a bit more able to ask people for help when I needed it. I mean, I probably wouldn't be able to count the number of times mum's had sleepless nights over worrying about me, and not that she'd tell me, but...
Really?
Yeah. I see my mum as my closest friend as well.
How long did you feel like you had this and were hiding it from your mum?
6 years.
Really?
Yeah. No?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm Thanks, yes.
So, did you know about diabulimia as a thing?
I'd vaguely heard stuff about youngsters running their blood sugar levels high in order to lose weight.
And did you ever think that would be Lindsay?
I was beginning to suspect that. She told me all through university that she was sorting things out with the diabetes team. We all thought everything was fine. I had this fabulous daughter who was managing her diabetes really well, and she'd gone through and got a law degree and was really bright and clever. And then suddenly it all came crashing down, and Lindsay eventually phoned us and told us all about her eye problems.
I'd been avoiding telling you because I knew how much it would upset you. That's the last thing I'd want.
I know that parents and things can often feel some guilt, or they've missed something, or what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, of course I feel guilty. I feel guilty that I wasn't able to support Lindsay more. Yeah, it would have been nice to have known at the time that things had got a bit too much for her. And
do you feel like you couldn't do anything about it?
Absolutely. I didn't know where to go to get the right kind of advice for Lindsay. It just adds to the feeling of inadequacy and impotence to do anything. I was getting emotional. It affected me. I ended up having to take time off work, and
I hate the thought of you worrying. I feel like I've put you through...
I worry less because I feel you're engaged and you're actually thinking about how you're going to put it right.
Yeah.
I know there's moments when things are still a struggle. We all appreciate what's been happening and what you've been going through. I'm hoping now that you've told me what's going on, that you'll now be able to pick up the phone and say...
I think the last few months it has been a lot more honest.
Well, you know that we're always here and we're always ready to talk, and, you know, and you're looking an awful lot healthier and happier at the minute.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being so open to
Not
help.
at all.
Great.
I'll see you later.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, love you.
And you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
That kind of upset me a little bit, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because I guess I knew she'd had time off work for stress and stuff. I didn't realise that I was kind of a contributing factor to that. I mean, it seems pretty obvious now, but I wish I hadn't put her through that. There we go. I'd got so used to not doing tests with every meal and not doing injections with every meal and not taking into consideration what my blood glucose levels were before going out the house, and then having to actually go from doing nothing to all of that in one go just seemed impossible. All the eye consultants were saying to me, you've got to get your stuff together and get it sorted out. But
were they basically like, you're going to go blind if you don't change? Kind of, yeah. I was warned that if I carried on, they'd get to a point where they wouldn't be able to do anything. Wow. I had such a scare that I'd kind of scared myself back into doing it. But then that was fine for a bit until, I realised that my clothes weren't fitting and I was putting on weight really fast. And that made me feel awful. How did you figure that out on your own? I don't know why I ever agreed to do it, but I'm glad I did. I went on a Daphne course, an structured education course, and I was in a room with 5 other diabetics, and even just joking about some of the annoying things about living with diabetes made me feel a million times better. Speaking to other diabetics has been more valuable than any clinic appointment I've ever had. Do you really think that's true? Yeah. Did it never occur to you to approach any healthcare professionals around, I think I might be doing something wrong here. Is there any way we can talk about it? Or I tried once or twice. I mentioned it a few times that I was concerned about my weight, and I was feeling burnt out with diabetes and I didn't want to do it. But quite a lot of the time it would just be met with advice like, well, make sure you do your blood tests because they're really important. we'd talk about numbers, and because my HbA1c was bad, because the blood tests I'd had in clinic were bad, it was almost being like told off. At the moment there's no clinical definition of diabulimia, and I think that means it's not taken quite as seriously as other eating disorders. It wasn't that long ago I mentioned it to my diabetes team and they weren't really sure what the issue, that they hadn't really heard of diabulimia, they didn't really know what it meant. If I was feeling really distressed or maybe had more feelings like I used to about not doing my insulin, I don't really know where I'd go.
Does that worry you?
Yeah.
I feel like you don't have a safety net.
No, I don't have a safety net. It's scary actually, because not knowing where to go.
So, I know you'd said that you had like no safety net, so I thought it would be good to arrange for you to meet someone. Have you ever spoke to a specialist before?
Never. 3rd floor.
All the psychology stuff here, but then also the diabetes research group, so got both things. Yeah. Hi, Claudia. Hi. How are you doing? This is Lindsay.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. Nice to meet you.
It's such a private thing, isn't it? It's such a painful private condition.
I'm just desperate that it doesn't happen to loads of other people. Because I mean, I've lost some of my eyesight, and you know, I'm constantly thinking about my weight and everything, but I don't miss my insulin anymore. I consider myself recovered, so it's kind of like you get to that point of you accept that that's what happened to you.
I have patients that come and you just think, if only somebody just asked you this earlier. You know, my heart bleeds out for people in your condition that have been suffering all that time, and nobody has got round to asking what is so obvious that you're struggling, and you've had to therefore play 4, 5, 6 years before you get around to having help. So that's the first thing, that I feel really sorry for you. I feel quite cross. You know, I don't think we should blame the diabetes doctors and nurses, and I really don't, because I do think they're absolutely brilliant at what they do. Like, they know their diabetes inside out from a medical point of view, and it's not their fault because they've not been given those skills. It's very easy for me because I'm a psychiatrist, and so I know how to ask these questions. That's what my training has been, and because I've been working in diabetes for 20 years, I also know how to ask about diabetes mental health questions. I'm trying to work out what's going on in your mind. You know, there's you sitting here, but I'm actually trying to think, what is she thinking? What is it that she's finding difficult about her diabetes? I imagine she really hates it, you know, like hates it with a vengeance, like hates it. And how do you look after something that you hate? You know, nobody can.
Sometimes I'm in clinic appointments and I'm thinking, you're making this sound so easy.
Yes.
And then not only do I kind of resent them for that, but it also makes me resent myself for finding it so difficult. So actually, speaking to people that really get it makes a big difference.
I hear that a lot. The whole day, the rest of the day is ruined. Whatever I started off with, good intentions, is ruined. And then the feeling like failure, what have I done wrong? So if it's all my fault. And then the extra effort that you have to put in to get it right. I'm not sure if you will be able to. You know, and then I think your feeling of that it's going to bring on complications. Oh, all those complications that I've been told about. So if you have all of those thoughts going on in your head, what people do is switch off and avoid.
My way of controlling that situation was to not control it.
Yeah.
So by avoiding it, that was my control mechanism for something that I couldn't really control, even though I was supposed to control it.
From a psychological point of view, it's a way of punishing the diabetes for coming into your life.
Yeah. You feel a bit like, oh, it's really unfair that I have this, so why should I look after it?
Yes.
And actually, I'm not going to.
Yeah. Your story is a very typical story of suddenly you realise, oh, I can lose weight. You've not done it deliberately. You suddenly find yourself in a situation where you haven't given yourself the insulin for whatever reason, like yours, which is I just forgot. And then suddenly you realise, oh, if I don't do this, I actually lost a kilogram in a couple of days. Wow. And you don't feel too ill. You like how you look, like your friends notice it. and suddenly it becomes a habit forming.
Yeah. I was just really angry at myself for not being able to break the cycle of doing it, but there was just something in me that was like, if you start doing insulin, you're going to put on loads of weight and that'll make you really unhappy. I try and look at it logically now and think, what on earth was I thinking? Why did I put those two things together and put that
a priority?
Above?
I always think of it as the weighing scales.
Yeah,
You've got the fear of weight, but you want to be better, and you're always in that sort of mind of which one do I do?
It was horrible, but there was also a massive part of me that was like, you've already had a lucky escape with your eyes.
Right.
You know, I'm 25 and I want to start thinking about my future, and you know, if I want to have a family, I can't have a family unless I'm looking after myself, and
so enough is enough.
That kind of thing.
So what was it like giving yourself the right amount of insulin?
There were a lot of things that made me feel really good, but the weight gain was quite quick.
Right.
And there was several times where I just wanted to go back to doing what I was doing before. My pump actually failed. It was way out of warranty and just stopped working. And they put me on pens just for a week while they sorted out another pump. But I actually decided to stick with pens for a bit because I felt that would give me more structure. Having a routine where I did a blood test, counted my carbs, did an injection, that really helped me and my head
really
get quite a good grip on everything.
For somebody to get better, either they've got to get to that point of exhaustion, enough is enough, I've had enough of this. Maybe they've got to have had the first sign of a complication.
Yeah.
It sounds like that was what you were beginning to think, and then changing your technology from whatever to whatever. Like some people might find going to a pump might be more helpful. I think also what you'd said, which is important, is that you felt that feeling of betterness. You really liked it. So I think that seems to be an important thing, is that you feel that you noticed, oh, I can sleep better. I'm not waking up every hour to go to the toilet. Oh, I can concentrate. My productivity is improved.
I'm just happier.
Yeah. So patients will want to negotiate that. They'll say, I'd rather have that than the weight. You being like this from the age of 15, so it's nearly 10 years. You must have been thinking about it all that time. I must do better. You know, you talked about this black cloud that was always there in the back of your mind, that you've got something to sort out.
Part of me was like, this is how I'm always going to be, and I cannot in any way, shape or form see how things will be any different. I cannot imagine getting up in the morning and doing a blood test. I can't imagine counting my carbohydrates properly with a meal. But that feeling that there's always something there that you're not dealing with, and it just, I think it got to a point where I just boiled over, and I was like, I can't ignore it now.
So what do you think about how do we help people who are out there not ready?
It's so difficult, especially when it's something that people don't want to talk about.
Speaking to your friends and family is more powerful than you can imagine, because if you've not been telling them and now you tell them, it's a massive weight off your shoulders. I think actually activating support that you've already got and realising there are people out there that really care and love you and want to help.
I know for a fact that my parents and my family would have been really helpful had I let them in.
Yeah, so. Right there. You've just said a really important point. If I'd let them in. Actually, maybe that's the critical point, is actually what people with diabetes need to do. Just a little bit more compassionate with themselves and a little bit more confident about letting somebody into their lives, into their inner world, their best friend, their partner, a family member, because those friends and family are actually aware, they're actually worrying, so it's not like they won't be surprised. And I think you might find that more powerful than looking for the expert as the first step.
Even if you do want to go ahead and find the experts, at least then you've got someone helping you to find that as well. So it's not quite so isolating, and it's not going to get worse by you talking about it.
Yes, that's a really good point actually. What's the worst that can happen by you saying to your mom, when you're 18 and 17 and you saying to your mum, I'm struggling, what's the worst that can happen?
Well, I can't think of anything bad that would have happened.
No. You'd have got a cuddle,
Yeah.
wouldn't you? And a mum that would have said, well, let's do this together, from what you've told me.
Yeah.
So I think you've helped me as well. You've made me realise actually the easiest, simplest thing is free, and it's there right in front of you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Speak to the person that you feel that you can trust or will understand.
Yeah.
It might feel like a massive mountain, but actually you might be pleasantly surprised that there are more people out there that will understand you, respect you and want to help you.
Well, has this been positive?
Yep.
I find that so interesting.
Was it?
The problem with diabulimia is actually just saying that there's an issue, and I didn't for a long time. Before, it wasn't even something that I would admit to myself that I was struggling with. The more you tell a lie, or the more I hid things, the more I convinced myself that it was fine as well. It wasn't about the weight. It was just that I needed a break, but that break lasted for the best part of 6 years.
It's likely that if someone's watching you talk, they're worried about the things that they're doing and therefore found this. What do you say to that person?
Well, it's easy to say, but speak to someone. If you don't speak to someone, it just gets worse. So you will feel better when you have acknowledged that this is a problem. I kind of wish I'd just said to myself, just say something now and don't keep going on. I, for a long time, felt like because I'd got into such a deep hole with not managing things that it was going to be impossible to change that around. But the right people can help you get there. I didn't think I would now be at 25 and managing my diabetes as well as I am. And I'm not perfect, my HbA1c is not perfect. But even talking about it on a camera is it's a bit like therapy.
Really?
Yeah. I guess this is now me finally admitting that it happened, but not until after it happened.
But I think you've done a really good thing because not a lot of people talk about this.
It needs to be talked about. It really needs to be talked about.
Well, good for you for doing it.
Thanks.